Saab has never been a mainstream name in the automotive world, and even at its peak, it remained a niche brand before ceasing operations in 2016. In the United States, Saab was always seen as an unconventional choice, attracting those who resisted mainstream trends. Throughout the 1960s, American car enthusiasts were captivated by the surge of British sports cars, including the MGB and Triumph TR4. These lightweight, responsive roadsters stood in stark contrast to the dominant muscle car culture of the era, where raw horsepower was king. Opting for a four-cylinder sports car was already a rebellious move, but for those seeking something even more distinctive, Saab surprisingly offered an alternative. The same company known for its quirky sedans took an unexpected turn by developing a lightweight sports car. Weighing in at under 2,000 pounds and featuring one of the most distinctively aggressive-sounding engines of its time, Saab introduced a truly remarkable vehicle, the Saab Sonett. The origins of the Sonett date back to the 1950s, when a team of Saab engineers, designers, and racing enthusiasts, led by Rolf Melder, set out to create a two-seat roadster prototype on an extremely tight budget. This prototype was crafted in a barn near Saab's manufacturing headquarters in Sweden and was initially called the Saab 9-4, logically following the brand's naming convention from the existing Saab 9-3. Later, it was renamed the Sonett, inspired by a Swedish phrase meaning "how neat it is." From that point on, the Sonett name became synonymous with Saab's sports car endeavor. The first iteration of the Saab Sonett was exceptionally lightweight, tipping the scales at just 1,200 pounds. Its aircraft-inspired aluminum chassis was riveted together in multiple places to ensure structural integrity without unnecessary bulk. Aesthetically, the Saab Sonett 1 was a sleek and modern sports car, drawing clear inspiration from the Porsche 356 Speedster and classic Alfa Romeos of the time. While not quite as refined in design, it was evident where its stylistic influences originated. Unlike traditional Saabs, which typically used steel bodies, the Sonett 1 featured a fiberglass body, an unusual choice for the automaker, but a practical one given the project's financial constraints. Due to budget limitations, many of the Sonnett's mechanical components, including the suspension and drivetrain, were borrowed from existing Saab models. This resulted in a rather unconventional drivetrain layout for a sports car, front-wheel drive. Powering the Sonett was a 748 cubic centimeter inline three-cylinder, two-stroke engine, which produced an ear-catching, almost motorcycle-like sound. With an output of 57 horsepower and approximately 60 pound-feet of torque, the Sonett was light and nimble, a refreshing departure from Saab's standard sedans. When it debuted at the Stockholm Motor Show in 1956, the Sonett was met with enthusiasm. Unfortunately, production was limited to just 6 prototypes before the project was put on hold so Saab could focus on mass-producing its sedans. However, the Sonett story was far from over. A decade later, in 1966, Saab reintroduced the Sonett in an entirely new form, the Sonett 2. Gone was the open roadster design of its predecessor. The new version was a sleek, fastback coupe, featuring a large glass rear window reminiscent of the one found on the 1965-66 Plymouth Barracuda. The rear glass led to a truncated camback tail, enhancing aerodynamics while giving the car a distinctive silhouette. The front end of the Sonett 2 was also modernized, incorporating recessed headlights into the fenders and a more angular nose. Overall, the new Sonett looked significantly more polished and cohesive than the prototype, thanks to the larger development budget. Despite these advancements, the car remained incredibly compact. With a wheelbase of just 85 inches and an overall length of 148 inches, the Sonett was 10 inches shorter than the MGB and about the same size as the Triumph Spitfire. Mechanically, the Sonett 2 adhered to the philosophy of its predecessor, utilizing as many off-the-shelf Saab parts as possible. However, beneath its body, it was a completely new vehicle. Featuring independent suspension on both axles, the Sonett 2 handled corners well and was an engaging car to drive. The engine was an updated version of the original two-stroke inline-3, now expanded to 841 cubic centimeters, producing 60 horsepower. While still modest in terms of raw power, the car's lightweight construction, just 1,500 pounds, meant it could still achieve speeds of over 100 miles per hour, given enough road. The Sonett 2 delivered an exhilarating driving experience, further enhanced by its unique two-stroke engine, which featured 3 carburetors. The car's 4-speed manual gearbox was operated via a column shift, adding to its distinctive character. Saab had ambitious plans for the Sonett 2, particularly in the US market, which was proving to be highly lucrative for small sports cars. However, the biggest challenge was not the price or design, but the engine. While the two-stroke engine was familiar and well accepted in Sweden, it proved to be a tough sell in the American market, where consumers preferred conventional 4-stroke engines. As a result, Saab only managed to produce 258 units of the Sonett 2 before making a significant mechanical shift. Recognizing the need for broader appeal, Saab replaced the two-stroke engine with a 4-stroke alternative. The problem, however, was finding an engine small enough to fit within the compact engine bay. Traditional inline-4 engines were too long, and a V6 was simply too large. The solution came in the form of the Ford Taunus V4 engine, originally developed for the Ford Cardinal economy car project, which was ultimately abandoned. This 1.5-liter V4 was already in use in various European Ford models, but had never been officially offered in the US market. Unlike the two-stroke engine, the V4 eliminated the need for oil and gas mixing, significantly improving the ease of ownership. With 65 horsepower, the new power plant represented only a modest increase in output, but it addressed one of the biggest drawbacks of the Sonett 2, the lack of a 4-stroke engine. With this change, Saab hoped to make the Sonett a more viable competitor in the growing sports car market. The transition to a 4-stroke engine marked an important turning point in the model's evolution, making it more practical while retaining its quirky charm. The Sonnett's journey was far from conventional, but its unique engineering and bold design choices ensured that it would remain one of the most fascinating sports cars of its era.